Hello, my name is Billy Roach and today I'll be presenting a summary of British blood sports with a particular focus on the ecological and interspecies animal welfare concerns raised by it. Please note that this presentation includes some photographs of dead or injured animals. The layout of the presentation includes an introduction to blood sports, including definitions. We will then move on to discuss our first blood sport, hunting with dogs, where I'll provide a brief overview and then discuss the interspecies animal welfare concerns caused by it. Next, we will discuss animal fighting, the sociological undertones of blood sports outlined by it, and then we will go on to discuss the various non-human animals affected by it. We will then move on to the third and final blood sport category, game shooting. Like hunting with dogs and animal fighting, we will discuss the welfare concerns of the animals involved, but we'll also talk about the additional ecological concerns involved in game shooting. Concluding the presentation, we will briefly summarise the key points, with a reference list and photo credits at the end. So far as definitions, Linda Kaloff defines blood sport as the practice of pitting animals against each other, or indeed humans, in a bloody combat to the death. They have taken place in Britain for centuries, and so have become ritualised and old-fashioned in respect to procedures, equipment, dress codes, and social character, irrelevant of whether it is legal or not. Definitively, blood sports involve a multitude of non-human animals, and so raise welfare concerns for both wild and domestic animals. Hunting with dogs has been banned since the implementation of the Hunting Act 2004. This is not to say that it has ceased entirely, with exempt hunting such as trail hunting and various loopholes such as the legality of the accidental kill being exploited by hunts nationwide. Trail hunting is much like normal hunting, but hounds follow an artificial scent rather than a real animal scent. However, this exemption, partnered with the illegality of accidental deaths during these hunts, has rendered the legislation practically useless, with an independent review over 4,000 days of hunting concluding that trail hunting is used as a guise for illegal hunting. On top of a weak piece of legislation, punishments are also not severe enough, with most fines not breaking the £250 mark. For hunts and their revenue, this is by no means a deterrent. Here are a variety of maps provided by the League Against Cruel Sports, outlining the extent of hunting with dogs in the UK. Although no map is provided, American mink are also hunted with dogs, with 17 registered mink hunts existing in England alone, as well as many unregistered packs. These maps, as well as the weakness of hunting legislation covered in the last slide, has horrendous implications for British wildlife. As we saw on the previous slide, the target animals for hunts are deer, foxes, mink and hares. These animals are destined to die very painful deaths after being hunted to the point of exhaustion, if caught by the hunts. As well as this, there are recurring cruelty cases such as that shown in this photograph of a member for the Kimberwick hunt releasing a fox who had been trapped, held captive over time, and then released on the day of the hunt into the path of oncoming hounds. This raises serious welfare concerns, as bagged foxes are wild animals and so being caught, held captive, handled by a human, and then released into unknown territory would be a very distressing experience. It is a fair claim that loopholes such as the legality of the accidental kill have left foxes and other hunted mammals vulnerable to activities such as this. Here we have a quote from Gensch, who studied cortisol levels in hunted deer and found that hunts with fast dogs imply a higher stress exposure than other means of hunting. Although only applied to cervids, it is fair to liken these findings with other species that are hunted with dogs, as they are almost always hunted to the point of exhaustion. To summarise the wild animal welfare concerns, Vanak and Gompa highlight that dogs interact with wildlife as predators, prey, competitors and disease reservoirs or vectors, and can have a dramatic impact on species of a conservation concern. This brings us to a lesser known victim of the traditional hunting with dogs in the UK, badgers. Often, on the day of or the day before a hunt staff will illegally block badger sets in order to prevent foxes from escaping hounds during a chase. As badgers are excellent diggers, this activity doesn't present any immediate welfare concerns depending on the level of blockage. But Lindsay and MacDonald also state that set blocking has the potential to lead to nutritional stress in winter if the time of emergence was delayed. Additionally, the badger cull, responsible for around 100,000 badger deaths, was based largely on the spread of bovine tuberculosis, even though hounds have also been known to contract and spread the disease, reflecting Banach and Gomper's comment on dogs being disease reservoirs or vectors. As we've discussed, domestic animals suffer welfare compromises due to blood sports too. We'll begin with farm animals, where there have been various reports, as well as video footage, of out-of-control hound packs chasing farm animals, including sheep and calves. This experience of being chased alone would cause a great deal of stress to the animals, but there have also been cases of lambs and sheep being mauled and even killed. Hounds and horses are also often overlooked when discussing animal welfare in blood sports. This is because hunts are often considered as caring for their domestic animals. This is not the case. When asked what could be done to lessen the economic impact of a ban, the Countryside Alliance listed their own sentient animals alongside an unfeeling inanimate objects such as munitions and firearms, of which they would need time to dispose of. This leads to the issue of when hounds are found to be unsuitable for hunting as puppies, where they are shot, with the same fate waiting for hounds once they are too old. This is evidenced by this age distribution graph for hounds of 3 British hunts, where older hound volume gradually decreases, with hounds barely making it past the age of 6 and none making it past the age of 10. This is difficult to fathom, as these animals will have lived very active lifestyles due to the mileage they cover weekly. They also have a natural lifespan of 12 to 13 years old, so their deaths are premature to say the least. Further welfare concerns for hunting hounds lie with the fact that they are often irresponsibly hunted near busy roads and railways, resulting in serious injuries and even death for many hounds every year. Hunting hounds are not the only canines involved in hunting with dogs either. On fox hunts particularly, when the animal goes to ground, terriermen will often use small dogs such as terriers in order to finalise the kill. As Burns states here, this is a serious compromise for the terrier's welfare and raises questions as to why they are still being used if trail hunting is all that hunts are doing. Finally, it is important to remember the long distances that hunting horses are required to travel with welfare concerns surrounding the risk of exertional rhabdomyolysis. Exertional rhabdomyolysis is a syndrome of muscle pain and cramping associated with excessive exercise, where striated muscle fibres essentially dissolve. This is extremely painful for the horse and causes welfare issues in the form of high heart rate, abnormal recumbency, and in severe cases, death. The next blood sport we will cover is animal fighting, where spectators will place bets on winners of fights to the death between animals. We can really begin to grasp the sociological and psychological undertones of blood sports with animal fighting, with Nurse and Harding stating how it is dominated by gambling and distinctly masculine subcultures, and Barnes describing the fighting dog as a status symbol that has become more of a deviant possession. To begin with, we have cockerel fighting, an all-male ritual of aggression and violence. Animals in this underground industry spend their often short lives in very poor living conditions, undergoing body modifications such as debudding, which is known to cause serious distress. As you can see also by this photograph, man-made weapons are added to the animal's spurs to maximize the lethality of blows. Dogfighting is similarly defined as a ritual sustained by the masculine need for validation, where animals are given various drugs and supplements, including cocaine, to incite them to fight. Further welfare concerns are raised by the high likelihood of animal thefts by fighting rings, which are not subject to fighting-sized dogs alone. In order to further incite fights, dogfighting rings will steal a variety of small animals such as small dogs, rabbits, or young cats, using them as bait in the fight. In 2018, a survey report by the RVC found that around 15% of vet professionals believed they had treated a victim of dogfighting. The report also identified an issue of underreporting due to problems of identifying cases with confidence, concern about ongoing welfare of the patient, uncertainty around when it is appropriate to break client confidentiality, and the negative previous experience with reporting. So far as what can be done about this, it is clear that a review of current protocols should be taken, with thorough training in place for vet practices to be better equipped on how to deal with cases as they come. In order for this to work, a multi-agency approach is vital, with veterinary practices working closely with police, animal rescue centres and social workers to fight this barbaric blood sport. Another form of animal fighting in the UK is badger baiting, whereby fighting dogs are set upon a badger that is often constrained in some way, or indeed through the invasion of a set. In the year 2000, around 10,000 badgers were killed in this way a year, but then, like now, it is very difficult to get proper statistics due to the underground nature of the crime. As can be seen to the upper right, the BPPG recorded that almost 15% of badger offences recorded in 2019 involved badger baiting. Much like other blood sports, badger baiting poses welfare issues for both the badgers and domestic animals, as can be seen by this photograph of a terrier used in badger baiting. The final British blood sport we will discuss is the only completely legal blood sport we have covered: shooting. Shooting mostly involves game birds such as pheasants, partridge and grouse, but also includes hare. As the British Association for Shooting and Conservation note here, shooting has found its way into the tourism sector, generating visitor nights by more than 4 million each year, outlining the welfare and rights concerns raised by the use of animals in travel and tourism globally. The welfare concerns of shooting can be highlighted by the fact that 27 million game birds have been imported into the UK to be shot for sport since May 2018. Not only is travel overseas a stressful experience for animals, but nearly all of these animals will have been intensively bred and reared, which, as per the Farm Animal Welfare Council in 2008, has the potential to compromise bird welfare. After this period of heavy rearing, birds are also expected to cope with an environment full of motor vehicles, predators and adverse weather conditions, and if this is survived, they face being shot anyway. Game shooting has significant ecological concerns too. Bicknell outlines the long list of natural predators that are killed by game estate managers in protection of profits, as well as noting the measures that must be put in place to prevent wildlife from being poisoned with supplemental foods to make the birds grow faster. Such a risk is shown by this game distribution map from 2013, outlining the extent of game shooting in this country. Although this is quite old data, Blackburn and Gaston provide very new data which shows that by the release time, the non-native red-legged partridge and pheasant represent around half of all wild bird biomass in Britain. Conclusively, British blood sports are a product of distinctly masculine subcultures, having become ritualised, even making it into the tourism industry of this country. We know that much of the welfare concerns for domestic animals and wildlife lie with the blood sport stakeholders' perception of animals expendable and not worthy of consideration. We have also quite serious issues with the enforcement of a large amount of illegal blood sport legislation, often down to the rural nature of the crimes, the legislation itself, or a combination of the two. This leads us to query what can actually be done to better animal welfare. In short, while these activities exist, there can be no perfect animal welfare, or especially rights, due to their very nature. So far as what can realistically be done, legislative review and reform is vital, particularly to the Hunting Act 2004. But it is also important for education and research to be done for the sociological and psychological undertones of blood sports, as this may have an effect on participants or indeed policy. Thank you very, very much for listening to my presentation. Feel free to leave any questions you have and I will respond as quickly as possible.